Trust me, it's just the beginning.
Congratulations, you made Penguin fully three-dimensional character who resembles, for me, Dustin Hoffman from Midnight Cowboy, or even Charles Dickens characters.
Ah,
Even, typical supervillain or gangster. And I'm
yeah.
curious, which characters from films or maybe from the books did you have in mind while working on your show?
God, that's really, Rats Rizzo's a really great reference point that I never thought of Rats Rizzo from Midnight Cowboy. Yeah, I wasn't thinking of anything particular, man, in approaching this, but there's no doubt that Midnight Cowboy was somewhere in my Rolodex. There's no doubt that various other performances were somewhere in my Rolodex of reference points. But it was what Matt Reeves wrote for the original film and what Lauren LaFranc and her team of writers wrote for this show was so particular and it was so nuanced. It was so detailed and his psychology was so clear and his fears were so clear, his vulnerabilities and also obviously his greed and his ambition and all those things were just created an extraordinary kind of canvas for me to, along with Mike Marino's extraordinary work, it was just an amazing canvas for me to throw paint at.
What made this character captivate you so much?
It's a couple things. I think the idea of seeing this version of the character, we had him come into the story in a way where he's kind of mocked and underestimated and made fun of. People don't believe he has the power to do any of that. And so that in it created the potential for a kind of Scarface story, a story where you see this guy who has this desperate need to be revered, has this desperate need for power, and how he's going to get from where we see him to there. And then the other piece of it is how extraordinary Colin Farrell is. We were searching for the character and working with Mike Marino, who did the incredible makeup. There was something that happened when Colin finally put on the makeup. It was like a new person was born. It's funny when we were, you have to go through a process when you're making a movie, you test screen the movie and, there are scores and things, and you try to use sort of what you learn to see if there's anything you can improve, make something clear. But one of the things that was immediately clear was even though Colin was not really in the movie that much, he was in the movie for maybe 6, 7 scenes, but he was scoring as high as the highest characters because people just were like, oh, there's something here. There was something kind of alchemical, something magical that happened. So there was no question. And I always from the beginning had wanted the story to continue. I told Colin that this idea, we initially think that he might be the answer to the mystery of the story. And it turns out that that's a fake out, that the answer is actually Carmine'a Falcone'a and it's John Turturro's character, but that then in the absence of that character in the next movie, because Carmine is assassinated, there's the opportunity to see the beginning of this Scarface story and how it plays out. And so I told Colin we were always going to continue that story. It was going to be in the next movie. And then as we were editing and everything, it evolved into let's actually give Colin a series and do this.
The Batman movie, as we know, had a PG-13 rating, and Penguin, on the other hand, is hard R or TVMA. So did this higher rating feel liberating for you while working on the series?
Yeah, because I think TVMA or hard R or whatever allowed us to present a more honest portrayal of how this man would be in the world, whether it was the language or the violence or now that we've established that in this 8 hours of television, then I think people will take the energy of that into the second film if Oz features in the second film, which I believe he does, but I haven't seen anything from it. But yeah, I found it. Look, I was fighting to get a cigar in the film and they wouldn't let me even have a cigar. And I said, even if it's not lit, can I just hold an unlit cigar in the film? And they were like, nah, sorry. So there's a little kind of curtailing of certain behavioral things and the consequence of violence, the kind of violence that Oz inflicts upon the world was much more readily explorable having a TVMA rating than it would have been in the film at PG-13, I think.
Just yesterday, you made headlines by saying in an interview that you are not sure if you will appear in the second season of Penguin. So has anything changed regarding your statement since then?
I got a good night's sleep and now I'm excited about the possibility. No, it was always meant to be a limited series, it was meant to be 8 episodes that would link the first film and the second film that would take place, in the 2 months, let us say, between both films. So I don't know. I mean, if they wanted to talk about a second season, if it goes well, if people watch it and like it and they wanted to do a second season, I'd for sure be having a good chat about it. But I think I was just saying by the end of the shoot on this one, I was happy enough to walk away from it.
Penguin is basically the first sequel in your career because you have never revisited characters you have played before. So what was it like to step into Oz Couplebot's shoes again?
It was good. It had been a while. It had been, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years, I think, since the film by the time we went to shoot. In the film, it was only the tip of the iceberg, pardon the pun. We saw Oz, a particular side of Oz that was the club promoter, the bon vivant, you know, somebody. We saw him under pressure when he's getting interrogated by Lieutenant Gordon and Batman for sure. But we don't really get under the hood of Oz as a character in the film. We don't really find out his inner workings. And in this, having 8 hours of television, we really got to explore his psychology, his past, certain events in his childhood. It felt both familiar to a certain extent, but it didn't. It felt very fresh as well because it had been that year and a half or 2 years. And also there was this whole vast storyline that we were about to delve into, you know, so it kind of felt more like a first time than it could have.
It's funny because when we first started, Colin loved the script and he really, wanted to be in the movie. But interestingly, he was like, gosh, but I'm not sure about Oz. I don't know if, how to play him yet or what this should be. And then we went on this exploration and we talked a lot about it. And then Mike did the makeup. And suddenly, once that kind of, as I said, that character was born, then he said to me, can we put him in more scenes? Can I do more? And he loved this being freed from his physicality. He connected to something where there was this essence that he found and that he was playing. The idea of doing a series, he was super excited. It's one of the reasons that he's an executive producer. He was like, yeah. I want to do this. And this is something he wanted to do from the moment we were doing it in the movie. He was like, I want to play this character some more in depth. And so that's when we went out and got Lauren LaFranc, who's our writer, and said, okay, we need to dig into the psychology of this guy and let's build out this story. And I think between what she wrote and then how fearless he is as an actor, the things that happen in the show, what Colin does is extraordinary. I just think he's incredible in the show.
So the Penguin is supposed to be a bridge between the first and the second part of Batman. So does this mean that we won't be able to watch Batman Part 2 without knowing the series?
No, I actually think you could experience the Batman on its own. I think you could watch the Penguin on its own, and you could watch the Batman 2 on its own. But I think all of those experiences are deepened if you've seen all of those things, because there is a kind of, I started calling it the Batman epic crime saga, where there's this kind of sweeping narrative. And I feel like all of these stories are kind of meditations on why this place is a place, why Gotham is a place of such desperation. It's sort of the corruption is never sort of weeded out. And why is that? What is it about human nature? What is it about this place? The answers and the mystery behind why it never gets any better. And I think where Colin is by the end of the series, it will be apparent enough from the way he's playing it in the movie to understand where he's at, but it will certainly be enlightened and deepened if you go through. I mean, honestly, what he does is so extraordinary. To be able to go on this journey with him and to meet these other characters, I think that experience, I'm hoping that everybody will watch and then watch the movie.